Hey friends, and welcome back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, then welcome to the channel. And today we're going to take this very cheap Glarry guitar and we're going to give it a pro setup and see how much difference that makes to how this thing plays. Coming right up. So yeah, I recently did the setup on this Harley Benton beautiful candy apple red guitar, and it plays a lot smoother and better now. Now I haven't had the opportunity to set up the Glarry since we got it, and so what we're going to do today is going to give this a pro setup. And yes, I do feel I'm entitled to use the word pro setup because that intimates that you've been paid for this kind of work, and in the past I have been paid or given consideration for setting up guitars for other players. And the same goes if you guys live in the UK and in the southern UK and you'd like me to set up your guitar for you, just drop me an email to chinaguitarskeptic@gmail.com and we can arrange it and make that happen. Right, so first things first, what do we need? Well, we don't need very many tools at all. In fact, here we go. All I've got is a tuner, a cable, the two Allen wrenches that came with it, and a screwdriver. You'll also spot here that I've got a little pot of Vaseline. And now the reason that I use this is just to lubricate the nut before we start, because when you are setting up a guitar you really want it to be able to stay in tune and also be in tune. And all I'm doing is putting a little bit of Vaseline in each of the nut slots here, just so that, oh, that's stiff, just so that we know that the nut is going to be running free. Not an Iron Maiden song but it will run free when we put a little bit of Vaseline in there, and then that should stay in tune a lot easier, because it is vital. There we go, we can actually get rid of the Vaseline now. It is vital that when you set up a guitar you want it to be absolutely in tune, because at least to the tuning that you're going to play. So if you play in a drop tuning, then set up the guitar with it tuned exactly to that drop tuning, because the tension on the strings has an effect on the neck relief, and it will also have an effect on lots of other variables such as the pickup height. Now, one of the first things I also do when I'm setting up a guitar is I just back the pickups off a little bit so that they're definitely away from the strings, and that'll be the last thing that we do at the end as well, is just to bring the pickups back forward a little touch. Actually, that one's quite nicely backed off already because it's a lot louder than this. I already did that. So first things first, let's give it a bit of a tune. It must be in tune. I'm just using my Peterson strobe tuner, and a little tip on tuning, put it on the neck pickup and turn the tone right down and it will be far more accurate. Also, it's worth noting that you should always tune flat and then tune up to the note, and then that puts a nice lot of tension on the strings so that you don't actually get it slipping back down. If you tune down to a note, you can allow the strings to slip a little bit. Okay, now we're in tune, we can check the relief. Let's just get rid of that cable. Okay, so the way that we check the relief, now I did this laying it flat previously, but the best way to do it is actually to have the guitar in a playing position. And what you do to check the relief is you fret out at the first and the very last fret, and you see if you've got any gap under that string. Now on the low E there is a gap, however on the high E you can hear that it's fretting out. That means that we haven't got quite enough relief in the neck, which means that we need to add a little bit of relief, which means we need to loosen the truss rod. And that's where our first Allen wrench comes into play, because we stick that in here and we're going to, by the way, righty tighty, lefty loosey at the headstock end. So if you face the guitar wherever the adjuster is, if you turn it to the right, then it's tightening the truss rod and removing relief from the neck. If you turn it to the left, then it's loosening the truss rod and adding relief to the neck. So what I like to do is just give it no more than a quarter turn. Sometimes it's also easier if you just pop the D and the B string out, just to get this Allen wrench in a little bit easier. There we go. So we're going to give it a little quarter turn and then we're going to test it. Still need some more. Incidentally, all truss rod adjustments do need a little bit of time to adjust. They'll need to be returned to usually about 48 hours later, just to see how it's settled. That's getting there. I think one more little quarter turn, and it's important just to do small adjustments on the truss rod. I would do no more than a quarter turn at a time. Let's see how that's working out. We've almost got that relief now that we want. I'm just going to give it one more little eighth turn, not a quarter turn. I'm just going to turn it a little bit more and let's see if we've got it now. There you go, you can hear that string ringing out. So we know that we have now set the relief properly. And once the relief is set properly, we can pop those strings back in. Guess what? We tune it again. Why do we tune it again? Because without tuning it, we don't know that the action and that the intonation and also that the truss rod is adjusted properly. You can definitely hear that now, so we've definitely got enough on the rod. So after the relief is set, we set the action next. And now if we can look at the action on this guitar, let me see if I can show you. It's quite high. I would say we've got about 2 mil at the 12th fret and probably close on to 2 mil at the 3rd fret as well. I don't know if you can see that. Certainly a little bit higher at the 12th than the 3rd. And the way that we adjust the action is to adjust the height of these bridge pieces, which we can do using this tiny little Allen wrench that was sent to us. Now, what I like to do is I like to take it down until the strings buzz. There we go. And then you know that you have got it as low as it can go. Note to self, put phone on silent when you're recording a video. So yeah, I've just lowered this to the point where it buzzes and then adjusted it back just a little bit. Okay, also it's worth noting that you should set, even on these you can radius them, because if you check here on the bridge you've got an adjuster at either side, and while you have got limited intonation that you can do by moving this forwards and backwards, you can actually make the radius of the neck fit with the radius of the strings by adjusting each side of these 3 up and down. So we'll get on with that. I do this bit on my lap so that gravity is assisting and making the strings buzz. That way when you turn the guitar up into playing position, they're even less likely to buzz. Next, you guessed it, tuning. Okay, this guitar's already feeling a lot better, and as you can see, the action is incredibly low now. In fact, it's probably lower than I like it. We'll still check the relief. Absolutely perfect. I've set that action to be a little bit more preferable for me, and it's nice and radius now with the radius of the neck. And what I'm going to do next is you guessed it, tune it. Okay, so we're all in tune. We have the perfect radius on the strings and the perfect action on the strings. You'll see now that I've left it with, let me get that in the right angle for you. I've left it with just the most, I would say between 1mm and 1.5 millimeters. I guess that's going to be really tricky to see even on the overhead camera. So, but that is nice and low, and what's more, it all plays and you can do full bends and nothing sort of grounds out on the adjacent frets. So I'm really happy with the way that I've got the action now. So we know that it's got the right relief, we know it's got the right action, and what's more, every single step you've seen that I've tuned the guitar again. It's important that it's in the pitch you're going to play it in, because pitch can really affect every single element of adjustment of the rod, the action, and also the thing we're going to do next, which is the intonation. And again, we're going to need the tuner to do the intonation, because we need to make sure that the tuning at the 12th fret is exactly the octave of the tuning at the open string. So what we're going to do is we're going to check out the tuning and we're going to see what the intonation is like. They should be the same. So when I hit an open E, let me make sure that's nicely in tune first. That should be identical at the 12th fret. Now we can see that you've got to be very careful as well. When you're setting intonation, don't fret out too hard, because you can actually easily push the note sharp. And what we really want to do is find out whether or not it is actually the octave on the fret without pushing it sharp. So I'm just touching very lightly. So there's the open E, which is just very slightly sharp anyway. Let's get that E shut onto the exact tuning. There we go. And then, okay, it is very, very slightly sharp. Now if it's sharp, it means that the length between here and the 12th fret is shorter, because the shorter the note, the sharper it is. So it's shorter from this distance here to the 12th fret than it is from the nut to the 12th fret. So what we want to do is, because it's sharp, we want to slightly increase this distance. So we need to tighten this and bring this way, away from the 12th fret. So we'll do that with a screwdriver, and we'll just tighten that in just a little touch. Okay, now the other thing to note, with a double bridge guitar like this, where you've got two strings over a single saddle, you need to check both intonation before you adjust it. And you need to adjust to be in between the two. So if one note is very slightly sharp and the other's very slightly flat in terms of intonation, you've got it spot on. If they're both sharp, then obviously you need to move the bridge further away. If they're both flat, then you need to push the saddles closer to the 12th fret. So we're going to check that now with the E and the A. Now that's the E and the A string in perfect intonation, and I'm going to do the rest of the strings as well, because it's important to make sure that you've intonated all of the strings. So we'll check that out. Okay, unbelievably, all of the strings there were intonated, and having adjusted the relief and the action quite so drastically, I can tell you that this wasn't intonated out of the factory, and just by coincidence, by changing that relief and the height of the saddles in order to get the right action and radius across the fretboard, we've pretty much intonated the guitar right off the bat. So how does it feel now? Well, the answer is it actually feels very, very nice. It's very playable and the action is really, really good. I would say it's optimum for me. It's between 1 mil and 1.5 at the 12th fret and somewhat less than 1 mil at the 3rd fret, which is just about perfect. So the final thing to do with a decent setup is just to set the height of the pickups back to where they don't actually touch the bridge. Sorry, where they don't actually touch the strings when fretted out. But if you remember rightly, this neck pickup is really not very powerful on this Glarry. So I'm adjusting this up as high as I can get it to the strings, just so that it matches the bridge pickup really nicely. And I think you'll be able to see there that we have adjusted that up. Let's have a, there we go. Hopefully you can see that. It's also really important that when you set up a guitar that you noodle around on it for a while. That's the end of train. So it's tune, rod, action, intonation, then noodle around, because when you noodle you get to feel if there are any issues anywhere on the neck. I really hope you've enjoyed this video, folks. It shows you how important it is to get the setup of a guitar absolutely spot on, and it will make even the cheapest of guitars play a lot nicer. Okay, I'll be back with the best content I can on this Sunday. That'll be streaming Sunday. I really hope to see you there. I really hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful. I'll be back then. In the meantime, as always, my friends, you take good care.